In 2012, one small mistake led to one of the biggest data breaches in tech history. This was the year LinkedIn, a professional networking giant, suffered a massive cyber attack. Millions of user accounts, along with their encrypted passwords, were exposed to the digital underworld. The breach began not with a direct assault on LinkedIn's main servers, but through an unexpected backdoor. The entry point was a personal computer owned by one of LinkedIn's own engineers. This seemingly isolated machine provided a critical vulnerability, a gateway into the company's internal systems. Once inside, the attacker moved with stealth, navigating the network undetected. Their objective was clear: to extract as much sensitive user data as possible. Usernames, email addresses, and those encrypted passwords were all siphoned away. The sheer volume of stolen information was staggering, a treasure trove for cybercriminals. Soon after, this stolen data began to surface on various underground hacking forums. It was being bought and sold, traded among those looking to exploit the compromised accounts. Months passed, and the true scope of the breach became undeniable. The FBI, recognizing the severity, began to take a keen interest in the case. Their investigation quickly connected the LinkedIn breach to a much wider, more sophisticated cybercrime operation. This wasn't just an isolated incident. It was a piece of a larger, darker puzzle. The implications were far-reaching, affecting not just LinkedIn users, but the entire digital security landscape. And this was only the beginning of a much larger investigation.
But this story, revolving around the massive 2012 LinkedIn data breach, where 117 million member accounts' email addresses and hash passwords were scraped using automated tools and compromised credentials, wasn't just about hacking into servers for profit on underground forums. It became something far more powerful, an ideological weapon in the tense arena of US-Russia cyber confrontations. The FBI identified Russian hacker Yevgeny Nikulin, born in 1991, as the key individual behind the LinkedIn breach along with two unidentified co-conspirators. But the case quickly transcended near cybercrime, evolving beyond the initial data thefts that surfaced dramatically on the dark web in June 2016 as a 167 million record dump sold for cryptocurrency. It transformed into a strategic tool with charges, narratives, and precise timing, like the DOJ unsealing the indictment on June 23, 2016, in the Central District of California, carefully orchestrated for maximum geopolitical message and leverage amid escalating US-Russia tensions. Fueled by the 2014 Crimea annexation and accusations of 2016 election meddling, this case became a symbolic demonstration of American power, showcasing the US government's capability to track, indict, and pursue foreign hackers across international borders, as evidenced by Nikolin's arrest in Prague on December 5, 2016, at the FBI's request during Operation Pacifier, and his eventual extradition. The initial charges, centered on the LinkedIn breach, were expanded to encompass attacks on multiple companies, including Formspring in July 2012, where login credentials for 430,000 user accounts were stolen, and Dropbox in 2014, where hackers accessed at least one employee's account to steal 32 gigabytes of user data, creating a heavier narrative of widespread foreign aggression against vital American tech infrastructure. Nikulin was portrayed by the FBI and DOJ as an emblematic foreign cyber threat, a representation of Russian aggression on US tech, framing the situation to justify intense international pressure. The prolonged extradition battle approved by Czech authorities on December 19, 2017, despite Russian demands and forceful public messaging. This served as a stark deterrence warning to potential adversaries worldwide. This is what happens if you attack American tech companies, underscored by Nikolin's guilty plea to conspiracy and computer fraud on December 16, 2021, after over 5 years in detention, and his sentencing to 10 years imprisonment on February 28, 2024. The legal systems themselves became psychological weapons in this hybrid conflict, employing threats of long sentences, up to 20 years for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, 5 years for computer fraud and abuse, plus mandatory 2 years for aggravated identity theft, stacked charges, and high-profile public accusations by U.S. authorities. These tactics were designed not just for justice, but to break the resistance of suspects like Nikolin, who endured over 2,000 days in custody, including 16 months in Czech prisons, forced cooperation through unrelenting pressure, and established dangerous precedents for exerting control and influence over international cyber actors. The emphasis throughout was on a clear cause and effect chain, demonstrating the severe consequences of cyber actions, from profit-driven breaches in 2012 targeting FormSpring, LinkedIn, and later Dropbox, to sweeping geopolitical responses starting with the 2016 indictment, within the broader context of US-Russia cyber warfare. In the end, the hack itself was only the spark that ignited a much larger conflagration. The real weapon was the meticulously crafted story built around it, one that shaped global perceptions, justified extraordinary measures, and reverberated through policies for years to come.
Every cyber attack has a target, a specific objective that drives the malicious actors. But in this particular case, the real target wasn't just a single company. It was a sophisticated gateway to a much larger, interconnected network of vulnerabilities designed to exploit trust and access. The infamous 2012 LinkedIn data breach, initially reported to have exposed 6.5 million cracked passwords, quickly escalated in scale and severity. Investigations ultimately revealed that a staggering 117 million user accounts had been compromised, exposing the credentials of professionals, engineers, and executives across various industries. This massive leak provided attackers with a treasure trove of valuable information. LinkedIn itself was not the ultimate objective for these attackers, but rather a highly strategic source of access. Its immense value lay in its extensive database of verified professional identities, which provided a critical and trusted entry point into countless other systems and organizations. This made LinkedIn an irresistible target for those seeking to exploit professional networks. The stolen LinkedIn email password pairs became the fuel for a devastating chain reaction, enabling widespread credential stuffing attacks across an entire ecosystem of online services. Attackers leveraged these compromised credentials to gain unauthorized access to numerous other platforms where users often reuse passwords, amplifying the impact far beyond LinkedIn itself. This included major platforms like Dropbox, which suffered a significant breach when compromised third-party credentials, likely from the LinkedIn leak, were used to access an employee's account. This unauthorized access ultimately led to the exposure of 68 million email addresses, demonstrating how a single breach could cascade into multiple, interconnected incidents across the digital landscape. In many of these sophisticated attacks, individuals proved to be the weakest link in the security chain. Attackers skillfully bypassed robust corporate defenses by specifically targeting personal devices and home networks, exploiting the inherent vulnerabilities of the human element. This shift in focus allowed them to circumvent traditional perimeter security measures.
The traditional security perimeter was no longer confined to the physical or digital boundaries of the office. It had effectively expanded to include people's homes and personal devices. A single engineer's compromised LinkedIn account, for example, could provide attackers with the necessary leverage for lateral movement into sensitive corporate shares or critical SaaS tools, creating a
Direct pathway into an organization's core infrastructure. Attackers meticulously and strategically chose their targets not at random, but for maximum leverage and high resale value on clandestine underground markets. Executive credentials, in particular, fetched significant prices, often ranging from $50 to $200 on forums like exploit.in or Genesis Market, due to the extensive access and influence they could provide. These stolen identities were then weaponized for a variety of malicious purposes, including sophisticated business email compromise schemes, gaining entry for devastating ransomware attacks, and even facilitating geopolitical espionage. This highlights the profound and far-reaching impact of such breaches, extending from financial fraud to national security threats. Ultimately, the attack targeted more than just data. It aimed at identity, reputation, and the fundamental trust that underpins our digital interactions. The true value wasn't merely in the raw data itself, but in what that data could unlock: access to systems, impersonation capabilities, and the erosion of confidence in digital platforms and professional networks. In the end, the most valuable target wasn't just data or credentials. It was trust, the very foundation of our digital society. And once that trust is lost, once it is shattered by such pervasive breaches, it becomes an almost impossible and arduous task to fully recover, leaving lasting damage to individuals and institutions alike. Behind major cyber investigations, there is often a layer the public never sees. This hidden stratum operates with a quiet efficiency far from the public eye. Some call it a shadow intelligence network, an informal yet highly effective system that underpins our digital security. It's a critical adaptation to the complex nature of modern cyber threats. This shadow CIA is not a conspiracy, but rather a structured process involving intelligence agencies, law enforcement, private cybersecurity firms, and corporate security teams. They share information and coordinate responses invisibly, pooling resources and knowledge to enhance cyber threat intelligence. This collective defense is crucial against evolving threats. The necessity for such a network arises from the transnational and sophisticated nature of cybercrime, which demands international collaboration. Cybercrime costs are projected to reach $10.5 trillion annually by 2025. Operations involve seamless data flow between government agencies like the FBI, NSA, and CISA, alongside tech companies, contractors, and international partners. This exchange happens largely outside public view, enabling fast tracking of threats and decisions made long before they become public knowledge. It's about proactive defense. Private cybersecurity firms contribute specialized expertise in areas like malware analysis and threat hunting, forming crucial public-private partnerships. Initiatives like CISA's AIS and JCDC facilitate this exchange. The network's existence becomes apparent through public actions like indictments, arrests, or extraditions. These are the moments when the shadow breaks, revealing the outcomes of covert collaborative efforts. By then, most of the critical work has been done in silence, and the narratives are finalized. International cooperation, facilitated by organizations like Interpol, is essential for bringing cybercriminals to justice. This network reveals critical insights into power dynamics, information movement, and the intersection of cybercrime and geopolitics. Cyber attacks are increasingly used for state-sponsored espionage and warfare. Geopolitics shapes cybersecurity, with nation-states leveraging cyber capabilities, leading to a doubling of cyber attacks in recent years. The network helps gain insights into state-sponsored attackers' tactics. Information movement within this network is critical for understanding and countering sophisticated cyber campaigns, enabling early detection and warning mechanisms. Its power lies in its discrete operation. The involvement of private contractors further blurs the lines between public and private power, creating a unique ecosystem for intelligence gathering and response. Public disclosures are strategic and timed. The shadow CIA represents a necessary adaptation to the digital age, blurring traditional boundaries between intelligence, law enforcement, and the private sector. It plays a vital role in safeguarding critical infrastructure and national interests, operating in the unseen layers of our interconnected world. When the shadow breaks, it's not because the system failed, it's because it chose to be seen. This deliberate emergence highlights the strategic nature of its operations, revealing its impact only when it serves a greater purpose.
In every major investigation, particularly those involving cybercrimes and high-stakes geopolitical tensions, there is control exerted by unseen forces, and there is influence that subtly directs the entire narrative and outcome. Sometimes, the most important role isn't the one we see prominently displayed in the media or courtrooms. It's the shadowy figure orchestrating events from behind the scenes. The handler embodies powerful institutions, dedicated investigators, or vast bureaucratic systems that meticulously control the flow of information, apply calculated pressure on key players, and ultimately shape the final outcomes of these cases. Conversely, the puppet is the visible individual thrust into the spotlight, often enduring immense legal pressures and psychological strain that leave them vulnerable and isolated. This intricate handler-puppet dynamic forms a common thread woven through many complex investigations, revealing the underlying power structures at play. Control is frequently applied through legal leverage, where statutes and regulations are wielded strategically to forge an inescapable bind, trapping the target in a web of obligations. Narrative framing emerges as another potent tool in this arsenal, methodically shaping public perception through media and statements to sway opinions and influence the trajectory of outcomes. The tactic of stacked charges, combined with the ominous threat of lengthy prison sentences, drastically narrows an individual's available choices, compelling them toward compliance with the handler's agenda. These sophisticated methods serve to effectively constrain the puppet's actions and decisions, rendering them a mere instrument in a larger strategic game. Paradoxically, the visible figure known as the puppet, constantly under public and legal scrutiny, often wields the least actual power within the investigative framework. True influence lurks hidden within the labyrinth of intricate procedures, conducted behind firmly closed doors away from prying eyes. The public's fixation remains squarely on the individual in the foreground, while the pivotal decisions are crafted offstage by those in command. Grasping this core dynamic fundamentally alters our perspective on responsibility and accountability in these intricate cases. It unveils the meticulous construction of narratives, expertly designed to deflect blame away from the true architects of control. Moreover, it elucidates those seemingly predetermined outcomes, where the course was charted long before the matter reached public awareness. Employing this analytical lens proves essential for accurately interpreting the depths of complex cyber investigations. In the end, the puppet stands alone, judged harshly by the watching world under intense scrutiny. Meanwhile, the handler evades such public reckoning, assessed solely by the tangible results they deliver from the shadows.
In the end, there was no single moment of judgment, no singular gavel strike that sealed a fate. Instead, the process was far more intricate, unfolding in layers of decision-making long before any formal trial. Instead, there was a complex, evolving process, one that decided guilt, meaning, and consequence long before any courtroom. This process often operated in the shadows, away from public scrutiny, yet its impact was undeniable. The traditional roles of judge, jury, and executioner often merged within the very institutions tasked with investigating and interpreting cybercrimes. These entities, from intelligence agencies to specialized law enforcement units, held immense power in shaping the narrative and outcome of each case. These systems, shaped by precedent, political pressures, and operational necessity, determined outcomes not solely on facts, but on broader narratives. The technical complexities of cybercrime often allowed for interpretations that served institutional agendas, rather than purely objective truth. Judgment truly happened in the charging decisions, the pretrial negotiations, and the public narratives crafted around each case. These initial stages, often unseen by the public, were where the true weight of the system was brought to bear. It was in these early stages, influenced by international pressure and policy, that sentence ranges and potential futures were often defined. The geopolitical implications of cyber incidents frequently dictated the severity of the response, overshadowing individual circumstances. The question then becomes, was this about justice or was it about control? Was the system truly seeking equitable outcomes, or was it primarily concerned with asserting authority and maintaining order in the digital realm? These systems, while designed to protect, inevitably centralized immense power, deciding which cases would serve as examples. This selective enforcement created a chilling effect, shaping behavior through the fear of being made an example of. Often, there was no malice, just the relentless momentum of authority and the weight of institutional process. The sheer scale and complexity of cyber investigations meant that individual cases were often swept up in a larger, impersonal machinery. For the individual caught within this machinery, the human cost was profound. Lives were irrevocably altered, reputations shattered, and futures derailed by processes that often felt opaque and overwhelming. Agency was lost, choices narrowed, and identity became inextricably defined by the case itself. The accused often found themselves stripped of their personal narrative, reduced to a set of facts and allegations within a legal framework. The factual and restrained nature of the system often overlooked the personal narratives and the profound impact on lives. The cold logic of legal proceedings struggled to encompass the emotional and social fallout experienced by those ensnared. In this story, the system did precisely what it was designed to do. It functioned efficiently, according to its established protocols and objectives, achieving the outcomes it was structured to produce. The ultimate question is not whether it worked, but what it truly cost. The price paid in individual liberties, in the erosion of due process, and in the very definition of justice, remains a profound and lingering concern.